Hey friends, I'm at Laguardia Airport. You can see over my shoulder the tarmac. I'm at Terminal B. Supposed to get a flight home shortly. It's 25 minutes past 4 p.m. right now in New York, and just found out that our flight is delayed for a couple of hours, which means I'll be in the air at the time of our class. So I wanted to record my Drash for you. It looks like both Miriam and I will be just voices in your head tonight. This week, our Torah portion, Chukat and Balach, have something disorienting, not just about in the Drash, but about the Haftarah that happens for both of them. We've had a parsha that's filled with serpents and bronze, mysterious red heifers, wandering waters, and the strange drama of Balak and Balaam. After all that mythic intensity, you'd expect the prophetic reading to match the scale of the drama. And instead, Prophet Micah does something remarkable. He strips everything down. He refuses spectacle. He refuses religious complexity. He refuses the idea that holiness is achieved through accumulation of rituals, sacrifices, or spiritual performance. And instead, he says something so plain, it's almost easy to miss how radical it is. Uma Adonai Drash mimcha ki im asot mishpat behavat chesed bechatznea lechet im Elohecha. What does God require of you? Only to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. That is the climax of our Haftarah. But to get there, Micah takes us on a journey that mirrors the parashah in some unexpected ways. The pairing of this week's Torah portions, Chukat and Balak, is already strange. On one side, Chukat opens with laws that defy rational explanation. It's the Parah Adumah, the red heifer, the ultimate chok, a statute beyond understanding. And on the other, Balak is filled with attempts to manipulate divine reality through spiritual technology, curses, altars, sacrifices, and hired prophets, for goodness sake. Balak, a Moabite king, believes dignity can be controlled. If he hires the right prophet and he contracts Balaam, one of the best, he can bend God's will. And if he builds enough altars, performs the right rituals, and positions himself correctly, he can engineer destiny. But every attempt collapses. Balaam cannot curse what God has blessed. The mouth meant to speak destruction ends up producing poetry. And that tension between manipulation and meaning is exactly what Micah is addressing. Micah looks at the religious system of his time and sees something familiar. People who believe that if they do the right rituals, that God will be satisfied even if their ethics are distorted. And so he asks, with what shall I come before the Lord? Burnt offerings, calves a year old, thousands of rams, rivers of oil, even the unimaginable, our firstborn children. It escalates into absurdity, because that is what happens when religion becomes transactional. It always demands more and more, and it never reaches the heart. The midrashic imagination hears in Micah's words not only critique, but satire. The escalation, the rams, oil, children, it's not instruction. It is exaggeration meant to expose the illusion that God can be bought. The Mishnah later echoes this tension in a quieter register. In Pirkei Avot, we are told, do not be like servants who serve their master for the sake of reward. And Micah is saying something similar, but it's more pointed. Not only is reward-motivated religion limited, but it can also become morally dangerous, because once you believe sacrifice substitutes for ethics, you can begin to imagine that God prefers ritual precision over human dignity. And that is the spiritual crisis at the heart of this Haftarah. And it is mirrored in Balak. Balak is a king who demands control. He wants spiritual leverage. He hires Balaam like a contractor. He offers payment for prophecy. He teaches He treats blessing and curse like they are commodities. But what he discovers and what Balaam discovers is that divine speech cannot be purchased, it can only be received. And even then, it does not always say what we expect. One of the strangest moments in the entire Torah sits in this parasha. That is Balaam's donkey, who sees the angel before Balaam does. The animal perceives what the professional visionary misses. This is not just humor. It's theology. It's a warning that spiritual status does not guarantee moral clarity. It is possible to be trained in prophecy and still to be blind to reality. It's possible to know that the language of blessing works and still misuse it. Micah continues that warning in prophetic form. You can bring sacrifices and attend rituals. You can perform liturgy and still miss what God actually wants. The donkey and Micah are speaking the same truth in different languages. Perception is not the same as righteousness. By the time we reach Micah chapter 6, the text feels like a deliberate dismantling of religious inflation. We start with grand offerings, rivers of oil, mountains of sacrifice, and end with something so small, so basic. It feels almost too everyday. Do justice, love kindness, walk humbly. 3 movements: do, love, walk, that are not expansion but rather contraction. Justice, mishpat, is not abstract. It is what happens in courts, in workplaces, in systems of power. Kindness, chesed, is not a sentiment. It's loyalty, generosity, sustained ethical attention to another human being. And humility, hatznei alechet, is not self-erasure. It is proportionality. It's living without the illusion that you are the center of the moral universe. This is not mystical complexity. It is ethical clarity. And perhaps that is the deepest shock of the Haftarah. Holiness turns out to be far less complicated than we hoped, and far more demanding than we could ever have wanted. The Kabbalah might frame this differently. The movement from sacrifice to ethics mirrors tzimtzum, the idea that divine presence contracts to make space for relationship. If God is infinite expansion, then human holiness is not reaching upward endlessly. It is making space for the other. Balak represents expansion without ethics. More altars, more control, more spiritual noise. And Micah represents contraction into responsibility, less performance, more presence. In that sense, walking humbly with your God is not just moral advice. It is metaphysical alignment. It is living in the space God has made available, rather than trying to overwhelm or change it. Micah's rhetorical question, with what shall I come before the Lord, is not really about worship. It's about insecurity and anxiety. It's the question of every generation that fears it is not enough, not righteous enough, not faithful enough, not pure enough. And so it reaches for escalation. If I cannot be good, I will be impressive. But Micah refuses that logic entirely. God is not asking for impressive. God is asking for alignment. The prophets consistently dismantle the idea that spirituality can compensate for injustice. Amos says it too. I hate your festivals. Isaiah says it too. Ritual without ethics is just noise. And the prophet Micah gathers all of them into one sentence that cannot be improved upon, can only be lived. So what do we do with this Haftarah after reading Hukat and Balak? We recognize the contrast. Balak builds altars to control outcomes. Micah builds ethics to transform life. Balak tries to bend divine speech. Micah asks us to embody divine expectation. And somewhere between them stands Balaam, who begins as a hired mouth and ends as an unwilling poet, proving that even distorted systems can accidentally produce truth. After all, a broken clock will be correct twice a day. But truth is not the same as transformation. The question is not whether we can hear blessing. The question is whether we can become the people who live it. There is a quiet austerity in Micah's final line. It does not ask for brilliance. It does not ask for intensity. It does not even ask for religious expertise. It just asks for three ordinary things that become extraordinary when they are lived consistently. Justice, even when it is inconvenient. Kindness, even when it is unreciprocated. Humility, even when we feel certain we are right. After the serpents and the prophecies, after curses turned into blessings, after altars and rituals and divine interruptions, the Torah ends this section not with thunder, but with clarity. What does the Lord require of you? Not more, not louder, not greater sacrifice, just this: to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly. And everything else, Micah suggests, is commentary.